You may have just received a mailer from a bankruptcy attorney or a knock on your door that was very unpleasant, where you get essentially a summons notifying you about a debt collection lawsuit. The papers may be from a firm you've never heard of, so it could be from Midland Funding, Cash LLC, Portfolio Recovery, and you may be wondering, what do you do next? Like, what are my next steps? What are my options? And really the purpose of this video is to concisely explain how to answer a debt collection lawsuit, and also like, what are your options, because it is it's tricky, and I'm sorry that you're going through this, but let's get started. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel, where we cover such topics as answering debt collection lawsuits and other topics related to debt, with the goal of helping you get out of debt cheaper, easier, and faster. My name is Ben, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Ascend. Now, if you are just being sued for the first time and have a lot of other debt and you're trying to figure out what to do about that debt, we face that question all the time. Like, what do I do? What do I do about this debt? And so what we did is we built a debt resolution and options calculator, which I include in the link description below. And what that calculator does is it basically goes through a questionnaire about your finances and your income and your expenses. And it tells you at the end, like, what are my options to get out of this debt? Like, how do I get out of this debt? How long does it take me to get out of this debt? What are the pros and cons of getting out of this debt? So, and it can help with this lawsuit to, get rid of it. How do I just get into granularity in it? And I included the link in the description below, or you can visit us at tryascend.com and you can see it there. And it's 100% free, and it does not even require your email address. And the reason we do that is just we want you to have that free resource to help you compare your options when you face a financial hardship and a lawsuit. Let's get right into it. The first question we're going to answer is, why are you being sued? And the most likely reason you're being sued is because of an outstanding debt that is past due. So the original creditor, let's say American Express or Bank of America or Capital One, may have sold that debt to a debt buyer, let's say Midland Funding, Cash LLC, or Portfolio Recovery. And now these companies' sole purpose is to get more money from you back on the debt they purchased than what they paid. So maybe they paid 10 cents on the dollar, and now they want 40 cents or 60% or 70%, And one of the things to think is, how much do they say that I owe? And you may see on the court summons exactly how much you're being sued for, or you may be able to pull a credit report to see that debt and how much is owed. So, if you do want to pull a credit report, I would definitely recommend the government issue credit report, because then you'd avoid having to pay and sign up for some credit repair service or something. So just FYI. And now let's talk about how to respond to the debt collection lawsuit. So the first step when you're being sued is to determine whether you're going to respond to the debt collection lawsuit. So each state has different timelines to file a response. So be sure to look closely at the paperwork to see exactly how much time you have to respond. So for example, this lawsuit shows Portfolio Recovery in Santa Ana, where the defendant has 30 calendar days after the summons and legal papers are served on you to file a written response to the court. So really understand how much time you have, and make sure to read the fine writing to know exactly how many days you have, whether it's calendar days, business days. And for example, in California, this is how it works. You have 30 days after the date you are served to file a response with the court. The 30 days include weekend days and court holidays. So if the last day falls on a day that the court is closed, you have until the next day that the court is open. So really be cognizant of that things. Next, let's talk about, how do you respond to this lawsuit? So let's talk about that. There are a number of ways to respond to a lawsuit. So generally the easiest way, and I'll include a link in the description below, it kind of gets more granular on this, but generally the easiest way is to provide a few points of information that is added to the template legal form that is mailed to the same courthouse where the court was filed. And so I'll show you just an example response from the state of Minnesota. For example, in the reply, you're going to basically admit or deny each of the following things that they're stating that you owe. And one of the things that you can also do is you can demand that the creditor proves that they owe the debt. So it's called a debt validation. It's something that is a right to you, and it's something that you could potentially do. You can ask them to validate the debt. And so the key in answering a debt collection lawsuit is that you don't have to put a bunch of a story about kind of what is going on in your life and why you got into the situation. It's basically just like admitting or denying whether you owe that debt. And so please reach out to us if you kind of want some insights and kind of like different software you can use or different programs that you can use to kind of help you answer that and get you more information. You do even have to answer the debt collection lawsuit. So you may not respond. And let's talk about the ideas if, like, let's say you want to file bankruptcy. Should you respond to the debt collection lawsuit? And these are all valid questions. Let's say you don't want to answer the debt collection lawsuit. You want to know about your alternatives. I would say the three main alternatives are, settle the debt in a stipulated judgment, file bankruptcy, or do nothing. And so let me just talk about the kind of pros and cons of each of those different things. So for example, debt settlement is where you would settle the debt on your own. You call it Midland Funding probably instead of just the attorney on the file and the original creditor, and they can give you who is currently servicing that debt. And you would basically try to negotiate a settlement, the creditor. And in this situation, you may not be able to get as good of terms as if there wasn't a lawsuit. So maybe before the lawsuit, they may have settled for 50%, but now they're settling for 75%. But it's important to know that you have other options sometimes other than just answering the lawsuit and then applying and you owing the money, right? So settling debt is one of those options often. And what happens is there is a stipulated judgment that you'd fill out that would say basically, as long as you keep to the stipulations of this judgment, you'll have this payment paid in full. And that can be a really good benefit to you. And you can either do that in a lump sum payment and oftentimes you can do that in payments. And you can still get a discount usually on what you owe, but it really just depends on the creditor and who the creditor is. So that's kind of the first option. The second option is filing bankruptcy. And that's probably why you're getting a bunch of these from bankruptcy attorneys. They're saying, hey, you got sued. You should consider filing bankruptcy. And bankruptcy is a valid option for a lot of people. But let's say it's a $2,000 debt they're suing you for, and you only owe this $2,000 debt. So like, why would I pay a bunch of money in attorney fees and have this on my public record for 10 years if I'm, only having this one debt? So a lot of times, bankruptcy could be an option for some, but may not be an option for other. And if you're kind of interested in bankruptcy option, the two main options are Chapter 7 bankruptcy and Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is often much cheaper, but it requires qualification, and it's also much faster than Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Chapter 13 bankruptcy often costs a lot more. It's 3 or 5 years, so it's a lot longer payment plan, but you can usually keep your assets. And many people who don't qualify for Chapter 7 do qualify for Chapter 13 bankruptcy as long as they're below the debt limits, and those debt limits are very high. Other third probably thing, instead of, I don't want to answer this, I don't want to do bankruptcy, I don't want to do debt settlement, is doing nothing. So just like sitting on it and saying, I'm not going to do anything. The challenge with this option is what the creditor is probably going to do is they are going to request a default judgment. And once they get a default judgment, they'll try to extract that payment for the default judgment. Often in potentially trying to freeze your bank account, putting a lien on your house, or maybe the most common, which is wage garnishment. So starting to garnish your wages if your state allows that. And usually it's like they may take about 25% of your wages and just totally take those out. And another challenge with, not doing anything and waiting until they do that default judgment is that, you may have a default judgment that was entered in 2022, but let's say they wait 6 years to start doing garnishment on you. And by that time, all the interests of fees accrue, and now maybe you're owing like $2,000 originally, now you're owing $20,000 or $15,000 because of all the interest and fees and everything that's accrued over time. So, doing nothing is definitely an option, but maybe not the option you want to pursue. Finally, I'm just going to cover just briefly, let's say that this debt is not yours. Now, most often it may be yours because they do a lot of due diligence before, doing a debt collection lawsuit, but let's say it's not yours. Debt validation can definitely help with that. So you can kind of say, okay, this isn't my debt. Show me that's my debt. And then you can kind of go through a process that's basically like, how do we get this dismissed? How do we get this not on my record? Because obviously this is not me. So that's something that's very important to consider as well. Thanks so much for watching how to respond to a debt collection lawsuit, and also your options, how to resolve that debt within a debt collection lawsuit. I hope this video was informative to you. If it was helpful, I would definitely appreciate a like or subscribe to our community to help you get out of debt cheaper, easier, and faster. Also, there's a free resource below at trysend.com, or you can look at the link below. And that calculator basically just helps you kind of understand your options. And again, it's 100% free, and not even an email address is required. So hopefully this has been a helpful video. Please comment or anything if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for watching.